Oh, hi everybody, it's Forecast you reporting in. Thanks for tuning in for a little dialogue about the Syrian Refugee Crisis and the bigger context of the humanitarian challenge and the global challenge, and some food for thought about things that are not really being talked about in the mainstream media. Today is Monday, September the 7th, 2015, reporting in from the USA, but we're looking at the situation heavily impacting Europe and the Middle East due to the Syrian civil war. This civil war has been going on. The leader, Mr. Ansar al-Bashar, is under siege with some rebels that are seeking to overtake the country. Many of them said that they're ISIS fighters, ISIS terrorist fighters, intermixed with these rebels. And there's talk that the USA has supported these rebels. Agree. And so there's talk that the USA is complicit in basically instigating a war in Syria. There's also talk that we're doing so at the behest potentially of the Israelis, that they basically can expand Israel through what's called Greater Israel incrementally over the decades, as we've seen Israel grow through various kind of land grab actions. So there's talk that basically part of it is an effort for Israel to grab land in their adjacent countries, be it Lebanon or Syria or whatnot. So there's an angle to think about too. But there's talk right about what to do with these refugees. And as you know, as human beings, we want reasonable things for our neighbors. We want a good thing for ourselves, and we want a decent life for our neighbors. Nobody wants to see. We all share the earth, so nobody wants to see another human being in torment and anguish. But that being said, it's important to know about the history of the kind of greater geopolitical history that's going on here. The majority of these people from Syria are Muslim. You can see them. They're dressed in the hijab or the nabig that they kind of wear habitually. Some of them are Christian people. Some of them, maybe a few of them, may be Jewish or agnostic. Let's just remember a couple things here. Normally, when there's a war on refugees, they usually go to the adjacent country next door for a variety of reasons. That next door country usually is told to host them and gets money from the international organizations like the UN, because they're culturally the closest fit to those same countries, and they can also, when the war comes to an end, they can relocate people back to their homelands more readily because they were already kind of nearby. They were in the next country over, right? In this case, that next country over, they're mostly Muslim countries also, so that would be the most logical thing. And there are countries like Turkey. So Turkey, we see, is right next to Syria. There's Turkey. It's a big country. It's a NATO country, secular Muslim, and next to Syria, lo and behold. The most logical thing is not to take people from Syria and force them all the way up into Europe, which is a totally different culture that's going to be hard for them to assimilate into and fit in and make a go of. It's to help them assimilate into Turkey temporarily until the war ends, and then get them reassimilated back into Syria, or in adjoining countries such as Israel or Jordan. Israel is connected; they have lots of money, and they're right next to Syria. And there's no talk about Israel taking on, their civic responsibility to their neighbors to help their neighbors. There's no talk, not a peep, in the media, not a peep about Turkey. I mean, it's stone quiet. I'm like, what is going on? Those are the countries right next door. So really what needs to happen is we need to work with the UN to have a fund of money and various organizations, be it the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, and other non-NGO aid workers, to get them resettled into various parts of Turkey, little refugee areas where they can kind of assimilate. And again, they have close enough language and cultural and religious ties that they can kind of meld into the society a little bit with minimal impact. The impact of these people coming into Europe is dramatic. They're culturally, language-wise, religious-wise, completely different from the European people. It is a shock that the Pope said, well, the European people need to take in these refugees, given the threat that they pose to European culture. And that's the whole point. That's what this really is. This is to undermine European Christian culture, and that's what this thing is. It is a repeat of the Muslim invasions that we saw earlier during the early Muslim empires, and all the way up through, 16, whatever, when we had the Siege of Vienna. Now, in the Siege of Vienna, and there's Israel right by. See, there's Israel, and you can see just north of it, there's Damascus. That's Damascus, Syria, famous for Damascus steel, where they made some cool steel if you're a person that's into collecting knives or swords. Damascus steel is considered real cool steel. So they make some kind of cool craftsmanship up there. They've been famous for. So some kind of cool stuff in Syria. But anyhow, so Jordan, these are their neighbors that would most logically take in the bailiwick of these refugees. And there's zero talk of that going on. They ought to be the ones really doing this. When we look at the history here, Siege of Vienna was a serious matter. And basically, the Battle of Vienna, back in 1683, less than 100 years before America became a country. Not that far away in the big scheme of overall global history. Basically, the Muslims came in and they wanted to invade and they wanted to control all of Europe. And this has been a long in the tooth problem. And they're trying to do it more sneakily now. They've been trying to do it in Kosovo. They tried to steal some land from the Serbian people, and they got a foothold in Albania, and with Turkey. How they there was Istanbul and Constantinople. Istanbul used to be a Christian city, and they came across the way. They came across from here. The Muslims were here, and then they forced their way over. They said, "I want that church. I want to turn it into a mosque." And Constantinople. Anyhow, there's a song about it now too. The church that was there, Sophia, Haj Sophia, H-A-S-O-P-H. Okay, Haj Sophia, Istanbul. All right, so here it is. There is a former Christian basilica, now a mosque, now a museum. Yeah, it's a mosque now. How did that happen? There was one of the biggest churches in the world got turned into a mosque. Do you know where it's located? It's in Turkey, fairly close to Syria. This is part of a long in the tooth historical thing where the Muslims have been forcing their way in through abject force into various parts of Europe. And let me try to resize this thing so you can see it here better. All right, so there it is. There's Haj Sophia. That was, before they turned into a mosque-looking thing, it was like a massive church. So this is really going to be a long-in-the-tooth problem. And again, the Battle of Vienna, the king from Poland had to help out the Austrian king or whatever to hold off the Muslim invasion. And they tried to take Europe back then, and they're going to try it again. They're trying right now in a more underhanded, deceitful way. And this is going to be a huge problem for Christianity, the Western world, and also the kind of the cause of freedom. Because really the idea of human rights emanates only, or mostly within Christianity in Christian countries. The non-Christian countries, you don't really see them talk about human rights at all. Because it's not, it doesn't really exist within the context. They don't even care, including most Muslim countries. They're always low on the human rights index. So that's going to be a long in the tooth problem. And so while I feel for these people, we want to have a resolution. The best resolution is to relocate them to one of their neighboring adjoining Muslim countries, like Saudi Arabia. They got plenty of land in Saudi Arabia that's going unused. There's places where they could put these refugees temporarily in refugee cities and build in Saudi Arabia, take in their fellow Muslims, and with minimal impact to the rest of society. They could be kind of in a different city. They don't have to force them right into the normal neighborhoods that are already there and impact them the same way. So there's things they could do. There's plenty of land like in Saudi Arabia and those kind of places where they could build some temporary housing and some some sort of maybe light industrial type businesses to get these people back on their feet until they can get them back into Syria when the war's over. But they're not doing that. And that's important to know what the real agenda here is at play. It is a de facto invasion of Europe. And the Pope, the Catholic Pope, it's incredible how he is not doing his job, not defending his people. He had to see this for exactly what it is. But in my opinion, it's like what St. Malachy said, that basically he said this Pope would be the last Pope. And either literally or figuratively, that he's kind of not doing his job. He's leading his flock astray. in their idea to try to bring in these refugees. Really, how many terrorists do we know that are intermingled with them? How many? And how many criminals are among them? We don't know. So this is dangerous because there's no vetting process either. They're just flooding people over. We had this problem in America with what's called the Mario boatload. It was in Cuba. Fidel Castro said, "Hey, you want to get some people that want to, leave Cuba and go to the United States? You have 24 hours or something like that. Come pick them up." And everybody said, "We're going to have a humanitarian crisis. We're going to help out our Cuban neighbors. They're living under tyranny, under Fidel Castro's regime. We're going to try to help these people." So we all try to rally. Everybody that owned a boat, like in Florida, whether it was a private boat, whatever, they all got their boats. They all drove down to Florida. We picked up as many people as we could. We got them out there. We said, these guys are political prisoners and all that, and many of them were. Unfortunately, they opened the jails in Cuba, and they got rid of most of their real problem people. And then some of their most hardened, dangerous criminals came to the United States at that time on the Mario boatload, and they're now in Florida. And after that, we saw a massive spike in violent crime that continues to this day in Miami in those areas. And so that was a huge mistake. We're going to see problems like that with the Syrian refugee crisis, especially with the real lack of vetting, just the open floodgates of people. They've got all kinds of bad actors mixed in with normal people who are legitimate refugees, who are legitimately just trying to get out of a war zone. They've got a terrible situation. The way this is being handled is very dangerous for Western society, and it's going to be a big mistake. We need to get these refugees settled into a Muslim country. They're mostly Muslim. The Christian ones, we can bring a few of them over to some of the Christian countries. And that's been the historical precedent too. We had the partition of India. The Hindu people went one place, it became India, and the Muslim people went another place. It became Pakistan and Bangladesh, which was East Pakistan back then, and or West Bangladesh was Pakistan. Anyhow, Pakistan and Bangladesh became the Muslim countries, and when they had the partition of India. So there's a historical precedent of the UN segregating groups of people by religions that are extremely different types of religions that historically have not gotten along too well, rather than forcing one religion into another community. That's a huge mistake. Thanks for watching. This is Forecast Year.